Hello, I am Dalila Tamzalit. I will present for you my paper that I am co-author with Jean-Philippe Guigou, who is CTO of software development company, which is SALVIA Development, and Joost, who is senior researcher at British Telecom. I will present first initial milestones towards a microservice maturity model to help companies to assess about their maturity regarding microservices before starting a migration. So I will present the main challenge we are focusing on before presenting our microservice maturity model that we called MiMMo. I will illustrate this maturity model on two dimensions, the technological and organizational dimensions. I will illustrate this use on two examples before concluding and presenting a couple of future work. So currently, software is increasingly moving into the cloud, and this is much more accurate in this current context of the crisis, where a company needs to lean on on the cloud and provide their services on the cloud. And in this context, scaling and hyperscaling is really a critical requirement for companies. So switching towards microservices, adopting this cloud native architectural style is really complex. It is really far from trivial. It requires indeed architectural understanding and technical know-how, but it's not enough. It needs also to consider the organizational support to ensure a very efficient software leaning on microservices. So in this context, how are companies able to know whether they are ready, how far they have to go, and what to focus on first before trying to migrate and adopt microservice architectural style? So there are many challenges of centering on microservices, and there are several dimensions to consider. In this work, we consider two dimensions, the technical one and the organizational one. By technical, we consider microservice architecture, infrastructure, hyperscaling, languages, frameworks, and so on. From the organizational side, it is important to have the good knowledge and the good understanding on the importance of microservice in the business, to provide support and training for collaborators in the company, and identify the appropriate business model and the economical model, and other feature or other aspects. So from where comes this idea of microservice maturity model? Actually, before all, what is the main idea of maturity model? The main idea is to briefly describe the typical behavior, what we call activities, exhibited by an organization at a number of levels of maturity. That means that if we want to assess the maturity of a company regarding adoption of microservices, we have to propose a certain number of levels of maturity, to propose certain number of activities, and try to describe them. So this work came from an observation that we have made. We identified the recurring set of maturity stages according to the experience. From where comes this experience? It came from the experience of one of the co-authors. He advised around 30 companies in this context, without having in mind this maturity model. But once we were having a chat about research collaboration with companies and between companies and academics, and we identified We analyzed it and we identified some recurring situations and decided to generalize our observations. And for this, we have identified levels of maturity regarding microservice for companies. The first level, the less mature, is theory understood but not applied. There is quite theoretical understanding of what is microservice, and that's it in the company. The second level, unskilled approach, there is an attempt to develop a couple of microservices, but it's really the beginning and there is no business value on top of these microservices. The third level, we start to have quite a good knowledge of what is microservice. We have now a software that is developed following the microservice architectural style. There is an alignment, quite an alignment between organization and technique. The fourth level, we have an expertise now in the company. And there are some best practices that are in place, and it's quite okay. And the fifth level, the most mature level, here we have a very strong expertise, and the organization is able now to look at disruptive approaches to push much more benefits of microservices. So these levels can be applied on different dimensions of an organization. And regarding this first work, we considered two dimensions, technology and organization. These are the two main, according to us, two main important dimensions in this context. So we took these 5 levels, we find them here from the less mature until the most mature level, and we identified a couple of activities. This is not exhaustive. So we identified a couple of activities that are of importance when we adopt microservices. So integration, security, performance management, deployment, and implementation. So I will not go into details of all the activities. I will just illustrate through one or two examples where we have to describe typical behaviors and practices. So for instance, according to the implementation, at the less level of maturity, the first level, features are implemented as in a standard architecture. At the second level, the company starts to train people to use REST and API programming. At the third level, now we have quite good expertise in the company, so everyone with her skills can participate in the implementation. At the fourth level, we can use multi-languages and platform microservices, and the ultimate level, we are able to generate automatically some implementation and microservices. By applying these dimensions on the organization, so we have, as previously, the 5 levels of maturity, and we considered 5 activities that are of importance on the organizational side: the percentage of IT budget, the management approach, the marketing, commercial, and human resources. If we look at what is very important for companies, which means budget, sorry. At the first level, the budget, IT budget is 0. Of course, when we go to the most important level of maturity, IT is much more important and it takes much more important part of the budget. So for instance, if a company wants to have the best level of maturity, she must be aware that it will take almost all the budget. So, sorry. So by how we can use this maturity framework. We have here the example of 2 companies. We have this first company that identifies her objectives. What is what is the level of achievement, and what was the last evaluation. It is applied on the technical and the organizational dimension. This is done also for the second company. For the first company, there is this table where we take these two dimensions, we take their activities, and we identify, according to the levels of maturity, our 5 levels of maturity, what level is the objective for each activity, at what level we are now, what do we have achieved, and what was the level at the previous evaluation. So if we look, for instance, on the technical dimension, if we look at the integration, for instance, the objective is very high. The achievement, we are at the second level. We are quite far from the 5th level, and according to the last evaluation, we were also at the second level. So there has been no change here. If we look at organizational side, we have the business strategy. The objective is to be at the 4th level, but nothing has been done. So for this company, what is the decision that can take the deciders? So the business strategy, they can see that according to their process, technically deployment and security are maturing. We see here deployment and security are maturing. Deployment, the goal is targeted. We are not far from the security. While for the organization side, there is much more work that is needed. We see here that earning model is completely missing, while the business strategy also needs to be defined. So according to this radar diagram, the strategy can have an overview of its maturity and what she needs to do to achieve and to achieve the goals. According to the second company, the same work has been done. Here's the objective, what has been achieved, and what was the situation at the previous evaluation. So according to this company, the conclusion is that technically work to be done is consistent, but a number of upgrades are needed. And from the organizational side, there is a great knowledge. We see here that the achievement, the objective was the 5th level, and the achievement is at the 5th level. So the target is okay. And there is also a good commercialization, and business strategy is still to work. So this is how we can use our maturity model. We cannot compare them, both these two companies, because it's not the same kind of company. They didn't take the same time to achieve their improvement. So what is important to say at the end? Making the switch to microservices is not a technical challenge. It's also organizational. According to the state of the art, we found only one work about microservice maturity. They propose a model. It comes from the industry, but it considers only the technical dimensions. And we didn't find any maturity model that considers the business dimension. So our model is based on experience of advising around 30 companies. The attribute and observation are not always applied uniformly. They are not considered to be complete. So they are not exhaustive. Organization can use this to assess their current position and what are the next steps. And currently we focus only on 2 dimensions, but further extensions are planned in future work. But and also in situ evaluations are planned across domains and organizations. Thank you so much. And if you are interested, as you can see, there's still a lot to do. So if you are interested to collaborate with us, you're welcome. Just send us an email. You can contact me directly and I will interact with my colleagues if needed. Thank you so much. Bye.